value nature. For me, if I look at the African Development Bank's strategies and programs, we don't have a standalone biodiversity program. We have cost-cutting intervention which are linked to biodiversity, from providing energy so we can lessen pressure on forests, to alleviating poverty, to working across ecosystems, transboundary intervention, so on. And this has been translated into different policies and set of work. But I think there's at least 4 main things I can track. The first one is, how do you value nature and how do you make the business case for nature? Valuing nature is very critical. And last year, as part of our MDB engagement, we have to look at our portfolio and see where are our nature-based interventions across the portfolio. We realize that we were even more than we really think, because it goes from agriculture to green economy to sustainable land management and so on. This has to be streamlined, and we have also not to let it just with Ministry of Environment, but also be able to engage with other sectors so they can see what is in it for them and so they can make the business case. The second thing is scale matter. We have been trying to work across different scales from the grassroots level when we engage in watershed value chain in some of the countries to working with Madagascar on ecotourism and trying to bring in private sector so they can put incentive for private sectors to invest on nature-based solution. The Great Green Wall is another example where we have been able to put 11 countries together on a landscape approach and get the right sectors together and turn it to investment decisions. Because most of the time, people will not knock at our door for biodiversity conservation program, but they will come to us for climate smart agriculture projects. They will come for water management and so on. But we need to find a way to streamline all those and make sure that when we do that in terms of investment, we align with the different goals and priorities countries have been setting up. The third issue is, if you just go business by usual, the usual funding we get, we'll not be able to help a country to meet their targets. So we have been also working on many innovative mechanisms and funding. One of them is, we are talking about private sector. We have been able to set up a scheme called Adaptation Benefit Mechanism, which is about bringing in private sector so they can pay for biodiversity outcome. In West Africa, we are working with a set of national parks and trust fund to set up the first park bonds in West Africa. In Cabo Verde, we are working with Cabo Verde and some of the small island country on blue bonds. These are the kind of innovative financing mechanism we are trying to bring in board, so we can do the extra mile and break the silos as we fund biodiversity. This is maybe what I can say for the time. And the last one I can say is, we have at the bank a policy requirement to support country in reaching their biodiversity targets. But the ask must come from the countries. And most of the time, when they come to us, I always tell, okay, go back and negotiate with the Minister of Planning, go back and negotiate with the Minister of Finance. So if this is really a critical issue for you, it has to translate into investment decision. And if you look at the country strategy paper of the 54 African countries, most of them refer to nature-based solution, ecosystem-based approach, but it doesn't translate into priority programs and projects. And this is where maybe we have to join hands and work, so we cannot just build the capacity, raise the awareness, but also avail the enabling tools for them to start breaking the silos, because they knock at different doors and different windows, and we're talking about integrated approach. And sometimes there are some capacity gap we have to close if you have to do that. And this is why at the African Development Bank, in addition to our African Development Fund, which is a contribution window for the bank, we have set a new scheme which is called the Climate Action Window, which will launch next month, which will enable countries and partners from different sectors and at the grassroots level to start prioritizing and submitting proposal on related to biodiversity and climate change, so we can really bridge the gap and help them to go beyond the usual way of doing business and the usual do no harm policy we have at the bank. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that very interesting feedback. So we don't have more time for questions from our side for the panel. We've only got 7 minutes left in the afternoon. So if there are one or two pressing questions for the panel, I can take them. But in order to make sure you're not late for your next session, I don't want to run over time. So, pressing questions for the panel. No pressure. Won't you take?
Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Niels. I'm from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. I guess I was just wondering the views of the panelists on the role of law enforcement agencies and perhaps criminal justice systems in supporting biodiversity and nature conservation approaches. At UNODC, we support member states in addressing crimes that affect the environment and crimes that undermine the resilience of ecosystems, wildlife trafficking, fisheries crime, violation of MPAs, illegal timber trafficking, and also looking at the convergence with other serious crimes. But we often see a real gap in the role of enforcement and just legislation, I guess, in general, when it comes to biodiversity and conservation approaches. So I was just curious to hear your views on that.
So who of our panel would like to take that? David and Lucy both look like they're edging towards the, the microphone.
I was just worried about you because I knew you do it very well with her.
Will you take the zero question first?
Okay. So remember that, the one on wildlife crime.
Hello, my name is Jay Mogeni. I'm from Kenya. I'm a young lady. I'm 23 years old. My question is for Elizabeth. I'm a young lady as you, and I heard you talking about volunteering. I've been volunteering sector for conservation for 3 years now. So what advice can you give a young lady